made contact and shattered.
At some point, Chris locates what's called a dry bag.
Law enforcement had considered Laundrie the only person of interest in the murder of his fiancée, Gabby Petito.
Delivery to a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her. They've been yelling for her. She's been gone for about 10 minutes now.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Hello?
John.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here for another ATS live stream. We're covering the Idahofour, also known as the quadruple homicide of the 4 Idaho students from University of Idaho. So we've been following this since it broke. Lots to go over today. Lots of stuff I want to play for you guys, and then we'll finish it off with the new court TV segment that's just been put out last night. What I do want to just emphasize is we will make it specific on things that are hearsay. And then, of course, we will always try our best to stick to the facts. And I appreciate everybody here and theorizing and listening. So as many of you guys know, it came out late last night after they did the memorial service that Kaylee and Madison were, in fact, sleeping in the same bed when the murders occurred. It was something that we had speculated on and people had theorized about, but it was made clear during the memorial service. And let me just play a little bit of audio from that. And I'm not going to play the whole memorial service. I just want to read a little bit of highlight from Madison Mogen's father, Ben Mogen. It says, Ben Mogen spoke in support of Madison's boyfriend, Jake. I'm so glad that she got to have a little taste of what it's like to be in love with someone, he said. I was proud to call him my daughter's boyfriend. And then I will play the audio from the memorial where it states they were in the same bed. So they died together, same room, same bed. And then he goes on to say it's a shame and it hurts. We have Madison's family's statements in this live stream as well. So what we'll do is start off with statements from Maddie's family, including her father's statement that he had made with a behind the scenes interview on Court TV. And then we're going to go into some highlights from, of course, Brian Enton, not the full segments. You guys know I like to just pick apart highlights. We've got statements also from Idaho State Police that came out last night in some articles. The articles that I read through will be in the beginning of the pre-recording, as usual, for those who know how I set things up. And then it'll go into, I've got a retired FBI given his opinion. I've got former CIA, FBI agent giving her opinion. And it's just a little bit of the highlights of the stuff that has taken place since we spoke last, I believe on Monday. So let me play all that stuff for you guys. There's also a knife expert in there as well. So, you know, that's just some new information about them for sure sleeping in the same bedroom. And then, of course, the father is backing the boyfriend at the time, Jake. Not Jack, Jake. Good morning, Marshall Dove. And Kelly searches equals answers. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And if anyone hasn't checked out Kelly's channel and you like Watt's case and other deep dives, check it out for sure. And thank you, Christy B. I appreciate that. And yeah, Maddie's father is very hard to watch. In his interview that I will play for you guys, it definitely made me tear up as I was editing it. Just so much pain in his eyes. Thank you, Nicole. It's good to see you. And good morning, Green Eyes and Tony. So what else do I have before we start playing that? I'm going to take some notes as I play this stuff for you guys. And then, of course, we'll come back around and we will discuss some of my notes, okay? The other thing I do want to say is I really appreciate your guys' comments in my video. I know that that hearsay has come out about the 911 call. I just want to make it clear on things that we know are hearsay. And as far as that 911 call, you know, somebody passing out and the friend came and, you know, all that, like we talked about it on CDT's live. And I just want to say, like, the information is out there. I'm aware of it. I know that I've gotten like 5 people. You don't have to type out that whole thing about like the 911 call. Like, it's been circulating before you guys ever saw it on YouTube. We've been looking at it behind the scenes, CDT and I, and some things we bring to you guys, other things, if it's not verified, I try not to bring it because we just don't know if it's true or not. But it is a good theory about the 911 call that's been going around. I know you guys have heard it. But again, I just want to emphasize, we don't know for sure that that is how everything went. The other thing I just want to say too before we get started is we know for a fact that the red Mustang isn't related. We know that what else isn't related, guys? The private driver who took them home isn't related to the crime. The surviving roommates aren't related to the crime. The ex-boyfriends aren't believed to be related to the crime at this time. That guy in the white hoodie and the brown jacket at the grub truck is not related to this crime. The coyotes that were skinned, are they claiming that's not related? I think they are. I'm just looking at my notes, guys. Let's just talk about it in chat while I get this started. And Charlie Rose, thank you so much for the super sticker. I really appreciate that. And all I ask of you guys is to give me a thumbs up on the video. That's really all the support I'm asking. And of course, everything else is greatly appreciated. And good morning, Titanium Built. Okay, so let's get going. We'll play this and then we'll check back. And good morning, everybody. I hope you guys got your coffee.
Welcome back.
Thanks. I think I would like the carbonara.
Police spokesman Aaron Snell told media we still believe it was a targeted attack based on the evidence at the scene and how everything developed. What we know, we believe that's accurate. Still, he refused to say which of the victims police believe to be the target, describing it as a delicate question. You can't lay all your cards out at once. We're trying to find the various potential participants, he said. Is there somebody out there? Yes. Our goal is to find that person and bring them to justice. For Maddie Mogen's family and those of the other murdered students, that day can't come soon enough. Scott Laramie, 52, who is married to Madison's mother, Cheryl, 45, said, "Now that the FBI is helping out, we're confident that they'll find out who did this because there are more resources, more expertise focused on it." Grandfather Michael added, "It's just so unbelievable that she could have been involved in something like this. We're still trying to process the whole thing, and it's painful watching this drag out with no answers. If somebody dies in a car wreck or something, you don't have all these other ongoing things to deal with. How this could possibly happen, it's the farthest thing from what I could ever imagine." Forensic psychologist Chris Mohandy said that the brutal nature of the murders combined with the appearance of the victims as popular students on campus leads him to believe that law enforcement should take a close look at suspects potentially being an incel. Incel, which is short for involuntary celibate, refers to a misogynistic subculture of romantically frustrated men who frequently share their anger online about not being able to find a partner. There's a lot of hatred and anger that is evidenced in these crimes. The level of violence, the resolve, the obvious hostility in such a personal hands-on attack, that is a lot of intensity. So it is not inconsistent with somebody that may have that kind of motivation. There's something hateful and rage-filled about it. Ethan, Kaylee, Xana, and Madison were all stabbed to death between 3 and 4 a.m. on November 13th. Authorities believe the attack was targeted, but they have not identified who was the target or why they believe that to be the case. Additionally, Kaylee made statements before the murders that she may have had a stalker, but authorities have not been able to corroborate those claims. These are kids, adult kids, living their life, experiencing happiness, being spontaneous and carefree. And that's going to stimulate somebody that either felt entitled to have had a relationship with one or more of them. Mohandy said, for individuals that feel on the outside looking in, that's going to create envy and hate. Sarah Daly, a criminology researcher at St. Vincent College who has studied the subculture of involuntary celibates, noted that it would be premature to say the killer in this case comes from an incel community, but the circumstances of the murders could potentially provide clues. I can certainly see how people might suspect an incel killer in this case, particularly because the 4 victims are young and attractive, thus fitting the Chad and Stacy reference that incels often use on their forums. Daly noted that most men who identify as incels are likely more of a suicide risk than a homicide risk, but there have been some instances of real-world violence from the community. James Fitzgerald, a former FBI criminal profiler, said that detectives are likely already looking into the suspect potentially being an incel. While most of them, the vast majority, are not violent, some do have violent ideations, and they do want to carry out threats and actually take action against people. Is it possible they saw the young women here as Stacy's? That's the nickname for attractive women. Or young men, Ethan as a Chad. That's something that I know the profilers and behavioralists are looking at. Moscow Police Chief James Fry said last week they are looking at every avenue. So I see everyone talking about the 3 a.m. 911 call. Brian Enton reported on it in this week, and I have the clip in this pre-recorded, edited montage. But I will switch to News Nation if Ashley Banfield got more information on it. So did she gather more information? Because last I knew, they were saying that they knew about it, but there wasn't much information. But let me switch screens, and then we'll get back to this edited splice, okay?
Exactly the same time as the killings. I'm going to read to you what the incident in question happened at almost exactly the same time as the killings. I'm going to read to you what the police blotter actually says. Quote, there was an alcohol offense reported at 3:01 a.m. on November 13th, and that's the last night the kids were alive. The location, a field on Taylor Avenue. You can see it there. Band. It's called Band Field. So that is not far from the Sigma Chi frat house where 2 of the victims, Xana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin, spent a lot of their evening earlier on that night. The police timeline puts them at the Sigma Chi party from 8 to 9 p.m. But then there's a big 4-hour and 45-minute black hole where nobody knows, or nobody's saying anyway, where Ethan and Xana were between 9 p.m. until they got home at 1:45 a.m. So our Brian Enton joins me live again, and we're also joined by Gemma Gaudette, who's the host of Idaho Matters on Boise State Public Radio. Thank you to both. Okay, Brian, I'm going to begin with you. The big question is, what do we know about that very strange police call at 3:01 a.m.?
Well, we don't know much more than what you just said, Ashley. It was in the police blotter 301, had something to do with alcohol. Police did take down a report, although we haven't been able to get that report at this point. This is the field behind me where the call was made, the big white field right there. That's the frat house you just talked about. You can see with the Christmas lights, and it's all very, very close to the house where the murders happened.
I don't know if you're able to, but if you and your photographer Mo could sort of walk me that way, because as I understand it, you might actually be able to walk me at least part or all of the way from where you are to the home where the victims lived.
Yeah, we can walk you there. Again, frat house, field. This is like an apartment complex parking lot that we're in, and we'll walk you back, Ashley. And I've been telling you the last couple of days, there's it's a dense area. You know, when you just look at the shot of the house, you don't realize that all of these houses and apartment buildings are around. This is like a little walkway that the students use to get down to the frat houses. And we'll just walk up here. Be careful, Mo, because it's a little slippery. It's been snowing nonstop pretty much all day. Just looks like it let up a little bit. So we go up these steps here. And then this is a little road right here, Ashley. And you see here is the house. This is the house where the murders happened. So
I had no idea. Wow. I mean, short walk, that's like 55 seconds. I mean, they could have gotten home so quickly from that frat house. I had no idea it was that close, Brian. That's remarkable.
Very close. Yeah,
okay,
very,
Gemma,
very
now
close.
that we
and also, again, all the places they walked by. No, I was just saying all the places, the apartments, the houses that they would have walked by. I mean, again, it's a dense area. There's a lot of people who live in this area.
Yeah, and all the witnesses who might have seen something or had a camera out or would have just thought yet another group of students walking by. So Gemma, you just saw what Brian showed us and how close that was to the frat house. Talk to me a little bit about that frat party that night, because my thinking is that Ethan is a frat brother at the Sigma Chi. They all had to have known, you know, if he'd gone at 9 o'clock at night and they didn't see him again, right?
Well, what we know at this point, Ashley, about that fraternity party is that Ethan and Dana went together, as you mentioned. And then our understanding is that Hunter, Ethan's triplet brother, was also a part of that fraternity house. And Hunter took Maisie, their sister, as his +1. But even Idaho State Police, the communications director of Idaho State Police, has said there are gaps in that timeline that night at Sigma Chi, and they want students to help them fill in those gaps. So they're still wondering, we're still wondering, you know, what happened within that time frame.
It's fascinating to read that, you know, Maisie and Hunter, the two triplets with Ethan, were at that party as well and spent the whole evening together with Ethan and Dana until those two left the party, which you would think they would know the time they left the party, and yet we're not being told that. Thank you for watching.
Very interesting to see how close that field is. And yeah, seeing the layout there, I've seen people commenting in chat, like perhaps the murderer, you know, ran right like a straight shot there. Whoever did this, I believe, is very familiar with the layout of the neighborhood. I'm sure everyone else kind of feels the same. They're probably used to back paths and shortcuts and stuff like that. So very interesting. Thanks for having me pull that up. Caroline says a close, tight area, lots of windows looking into a lot of other windows and yards and walkways, a certain amount of churn of people. Students come and go from college. My nightmare cop workload, eh? Yeah, it just seems like a lot of people to knock on their doors and say, hey, did you see something? And did you hear anything? And it's just, from what we know from the neighbors that they have interviewed, no one heard anything. So this 911 call around 3 a.m. is very interesting, and it's been noted for sure on this channel since we caught wind of it. Again, there's a lot of hearsay in this case and a lot of things that I take with a grain of salt, but we keep it noted in the notebook. So yeah, very interesting. I agree, Green Eyes. Okay, so let's get back to the pre-recorded edited splice that I put up for you guys. And like I said, it's going to have more highlights from Brian without the dialogue, retired FBI knife expert, and a bunch more. And then we'll get into the, whatchamacallit, court TV segment that came out last night. We'll watch it together. I haven't watched it yet. And thanks again, everyone, for being here. Just looking at chat real quick. I need to make more coffee. So as I'm making this, or as I'm playing this for you guys, I need to make more coffee. And good morning, Mark. It's good to see you. And Without Borders, Pam, everyone else, Roxanne, everyone else who has joined us, thank you so much for being here. And give me a like if you haven't done so already. It's much appreciated.
They call me every day and tell us, they're working on how many people are working on it, and that they have these leads and that they're sending stuff in every day. So I just have to trust that they're doing as good a job as they can. And they seem like they're working hard, and that's all I can hope for.
Do you have any idea why this could ever happen to your precious baby?
Just nothing at all would ever make any sense of this.
If you could speak to the person responsible,
you never know how far something like this reaches, how many people it hurts, and how they're gonna have to live with this for the rest of their life. And it's something that'll never heal. It's something you just would never wish on your worst enemy.
What do you want the world to know about Maddie Mogen?
That she was so loved, and that she was the thing I was most proud of in my whole life. And I'm glad that the one thing about this is that a lot of people get to see how beautiful a person that she is. All these people have just been so supportive and great through this. So
how do you plan to honor her memory? I haven't even thought that far ahead. We're not going to have the service for her and Kaylee until after this is figured out. I'm just taking it one day at a time right now. I just want to say thanks to everybody that's been so great through this, and it really means a lot.
Tom N., thank you so much for the super chat. He said, good morning, Amber. I think they already have a suspect. And, there's a lot of mixed feelings on that opinion. I tend to agree with you. I think that there's somebody that they have insight in mind, and they're waiting for processing of the evidence and all that. But thank you again for being here and for your support in the channel. Really appreciate you. And that was a very hard interview to watch. Like I said, I walked away to make some coffee right now. I could hear it. I edited it, obviously, so I've watched it more than once, and it was very hard to get through.
When you have something like this happen, the last thing you want to do is hurt the other family, and you don't want to have any kind of responsibility for those people to feel like they were just casualties.
Did she ever talk to you about a potential stalker or somebody that made her uncomfortable?
She did.
She did.
We're trying to determine if it's just a singular incident or if there was a broader based stalking incident. One call came in for an unresponsive female, an unresponsive person. And so when officers arrived, they addressed that issue, and then as well, 2 additional people were found. Two individuals were found on the 2nd floor and 2 individuals were found on the 3rd floor.
So I just want to emphasize there, we just heard Maddie's father say that, the news lady said, did she have a stalker or somebody that made her feel uncomfortable? And he says she did. Now, did he mean she did as far as have a stalker or just somebody who made her feel uncomfortable? And then we seen Idaho State Police follow up with that and say they're digging more into it to see if it was, a one-time type of thing or whatever. But it's like, no matter what the police think of as a level of stalker, if she expressed that to her father, that should be noteworthy in my opinion. And then, like I said, here it says just a little bit more details about the 911 call. And this was Maddie's father's interview this week. Part of it I've played, parts of it I'm sure you've seen, but at one point he says, I know the girls reached out via texting and calling, so I can only assume by the phones being ignored, knowing how my daughter is not going to ignore calls and texting. So he's just referring to how the roommates kind of were alerted that something might have been wrong. He said that the other roommates, surviving roommates, reached out via texting and calling. And he's saying, I can only assume by phones being ignored. So that's another little tidbit that we've gotten to hear this morning. If you guys are just joining us, good morning, Allegedly with Brittany J. We went through Maddie Mogen's family statements in the beginning of chat. We also heard Maddie's father at the memorial state that they were in the same bed and passed together. Yeah, Tom, and oh my gosh, yeah, hopefully they don't have to drag this out. Like Delphi, they say it's sloppy crime scene with a lot of evidence, right? I mean, it's just, there's always a rhyme and reason and a technique and a tactic, but yeah, I don't want to do 5 years of following this. And you know, it's crazy. I kind of just jumped on the Delphi stuff like back in May when the search warrant information was leaked. So it's crazy to think of what information they have in this Idahofour case that we just don't know anything about. You know, the mother of Kaylee has stated, and I believe I have it clipped in here that we'll be listening to, that they have a lot of evidence, but a lot of it is digital.
Please come over. She was wanting Jack to come over. They just said that they have a ton of evidence. It's all digital information.
There's a lot of things that we're holding, and I'm not just the only one holding information. It was fast. Yeah, nobody suffered and nobody felt like that kind of pain.
Investigators have learned that a physical struggle took place before the murders happened.
Their story was they heard partying, they heard noise, but they just, as usual, said, you know, there's partying going on. They locked the door.
There were stab wounds on the hands of at least one of the students that make it appear that it would be defensive wounds. Likely that maybe they were sleeping. Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound. Fatal ones were to the chest area or the upper body area. There were multiple stab wounds on them. Well, it was a pretty large knife, and there were definitely stabbings. And I mean, it has to be somebody that's pretty angry.
We believe it was a targeted attack. I mean, to be honest, you're going to have to trust us on that at this point.
We know that there are reports that the police were at the frat party. It really could have been anything. It may have had nothing to do with them, with the two victims. It could have been something totally unrelated. I will tell you this, though, going to the fraternities and sororities today, trying to get them to talk, it's not easy right now. They've been told not to talk to the media and only to talk to the police.
On the upper floors, it was Kaylee's room on the right as you're looking at the house, and it was Maddie's room on the left. But that window on the right-hand side is the first time I've really seen it lit up at night and seen that, whatever that pattern is of what's sitting in the window. As I said, I believe that to be Xana Kernodle's room, where she and Ethan would have been sleeping that night on the second floor. And of course, over on the left is the living room.
We've been told is that this was targeted. That's one word that's come up, targeted. Can you shed any more light on that, what that means?
It seems like the word targeted has had different understandings for different people who are listening, and perhaps isn't the best word to use. The bottom line is whoever's responsible for this is still at large. That can't be changed. My understanding is the investigators believe that whoever's responsible was specifically looking at this particular residence, but that's all that they can offer at this point.
Can they say whether they were looking at whether the person responsible was looking at a particular individual?
I don't think they can say that at this point. They are still, that's part of the investigation, is trying to determine who might have been the target.
This seems like a very, very targeted killing. Just looking at the footprints of the house, looking at how personal this was, looking at how forceful this was, and looking at how violent this was, to me, someone had a score to settle in looking at this. And so I don't believe that the killer is going to strike again, but you're sort of left with two ends of the spectrum. Either this was a very highly targeted killing, which is what I believe it was, or this is some type of a scenario where you have someone who is in sort of a serial killer kind of mode. This isn't a home invasion kind of situation gone wrong. You know, what I found was really interesting, and just looking at the history of the community, and then also some of the work I did when I was at the CIA was looking at photographs and imagery. What I found was interesting was actually the lack of Ring doorbell cameras, which is a very simple security system on a lot of the surrounding apartment complexes and condos. I kind of took a jaunt down Google Satellite looking at those. And so I initially thought that perhaps a lot of this might be CCTV or Ring cameras or those kinds of things. But what I think that they're looking at now is text messages, screenshots, photos, social media, pictures and thoughts, and TikTok videos. And this may not be a popular opinion, that I do think law enforcement here is doing the best job that they can. I know that there's been a lot of sort of frustration with them, and I can understand that, especially for the victims' families. I think that right now law enforcement is playing their cards very close to their chest, which is probably the right thing to do, as they don't want to jeopardize any future prosecution of the case.
First of all, you know, this is a very complex scene. In other words, what I'm saying here is that it's not something where it's a single family home where you have a couple of, you have a pet and a couple of people living there. This is one that has had multiple people visiting and multiple tenants. Who knows the last time it was cleaned? You have hairs, fibers, fingerprints, maybe other DNA that's around. And for police and forensic experts to sort through this, it takes a while. So this investigative onion, if you will, is taking a while to reveal itself. At the same time, there's no individual suspect that's kind of jumped out, either by past behaviors, comments, threats, or what have you, that they kind of be able to kind of focus in on. It appears as though it's someone further back around the orbit of one or several of these people who may be responsible. Because at this point, what they've done is they've contained the crime scene, they preserved it as best they can, and now they're ready to say, we've collected all the evidence we feel as though we can collect here, and now turn it over to the owners. The other crimes that were committed, the ones in Washington and Oregon, they've ruled those out because they've probably looked at the forensic evidence, they've combed through, and they've kind of said, no, this does not match the profile. And at the same time, talking about profile, the FBI does have their profilers and their behavioral analysis people involved in this case, so they too have been able to kind of weigh in on what things get ruled in and ruled out. But it is something at this point that is not something that's, we can tell right now, is solved in a 60-minute melodrama television production. This will take a while. The crime scene was probably very complicated, as I mentioned before, about other factors of people being in the home previously, as well as mixture of DNA.
Well, they have had it locked down for some time, and it's very interesting. I think particularly what Brian just covered, that they just now are removing these vehicles. I would have thought that by this point in time, they would have been removed to a secure location, which is probably going to be the state crime lab or maybe an FBI facility where they can keep them contained inside of a garage, an evidence processing garage, and no one else will have access to these. The problem is, the longer you wait for these things, the more physical evidence becomes diminished, perhaps. And so, at this point in time, I guess they're thinking there might be evidence on the interior of the vehicle, because if they found value on the exterior of the vehicle, then they would have snapped them up much sooner. Now, to the location itself, it is still locked down, as well that it should be. This is an active, ongoing investigation. And Nicole, this is a very complicated crime scene. It's a multi-story dwelling, and it's kind of oddly configured. You've got multiple entrances from several perspectives. That back door that you guys showed just a second ago on that parking pad back there. And in addition, that second floor where you've got that that panel of sliding glass doors. It can be accessed from there as well. So there is quite a bit of nuance here relative to how this is being approached. I'm just hoping that everything is staying locked down and that they are only allowing select individuals into that dwelling that are properly versed in processing crime scenes. Well, from my perspective, the cars would have been gone 2 weeks ago, essentially, because if there is value in them now, there was value in them then, and they are, in fact, part of that crime scene. You see that tape that's up there? Everything that is within that tape is under the active control of the law enforcement officials. And so they're just kind of out there. They're exposed to the elements. So you want to get those secured as soon as possible. And I'm not trying to be a Monday morning quarterback here. However, you have to look at this and think, why weren't they removed sooner? So that's certainly something that I think should have been addressed much quicker. I'm glad that they're getting to them now, though. Well, I can tell you this, just from the snatches that we've gotten, I think that this is a very brutal scene. I'm certainly no profiler, but from a medical legal perspective, when you begin to think about injuries sustained by sharp force injury, it is very brutal. It's very primal, if you will. A lot of anger is involved in this because this is not like shooting someone, Nicole, at a distance. This is up close and personal. You're in this individual space. I think that goes without saying. You're actually in the room with them, in their bedroom. And that, again, makes it very personal. A lot of anger involved here. Again, we don't know a lot about the nature of the injuries. We have heard that there are stab wounds. We've heard, I think, snatches, that there are defensive wounds. That gives you a sense of awareness, doesn't it? That the individual, whoever it was, had an awareness that they were being attacked. I think that that's about as much as we can read into it. I can tell you this. There will be a tremendous amount of biological evidence at the scene, namely in the form of blood and, by extension, in DNA.
We're looking for a knife.
Rambo knives have kind of taken on a generic term. Most any large, wicked-looking knife has been called a Rambo knife. A K-bar knife really is not a Rambo-type knife. The first two Rambo movie knives were made by a fellow named Jimmy Lyle, and it was based on a survivalist tool. It had a hollow handle to keep fishing gear, perhaps matches and such. And as you said, it had a saw blade top on it. A K-bar is a totally different instrument. A K-bar it was a permutation of what they called the Mark I, which was used in World War I. It was a combat knife, but it also had a set of brass knuckles built into it, so it was very unwieldy. So originally, the U.S. Marine Corps used the original K-bar. They called it the Mark I. Eventually, the Navy picked up the Mark I. But they're a totally different animal. The K-bar has a stacked leather washer. It typically has a 1095 high carbon steel blade. It also has what's known as a fuller ground into the blade to lighten it, which is that little ridge across the front and the back of the blade. A lot of them are fantasy type knives. Overseas, there have been so many copies of the quote Rambo knife, end of quotes. But yes, from a functional standpoint, typically a fisherman or a hunter is not carrying a survival tool. They may have a hatchet, they may have a saw, they may have a knife. Whereas when you look at something like a K-bar, it really is a combat style knife. It's not a hunting knife. Sure, you could probably chop kindling with it, but it's officially made for one thing. I mean, it has the main sharp edge, and then it has what's known as a clip, which is probably the front third of the top, and that's also sharpened. It's a very violent weapon, whether in a slashing or a stabbing motion. But with a stacked leather washer, you could grip it even if your hands are sweaty or bloody. And again, to immediately call it a Rambo knife makes people jump to conclusions. And the K-bar would make a lot more sense to me because, to be honest with you, growing up as a kid, I used a K-bar as a throwing knife.
The other thing is gun shows. I mean, there's a lot of places you can get this, what was just referenced as the K-bar knife. I think I agree with him. I think the other type knife that described as the Rambo knife is a little bit harder to get your hands on. It's got a serrated edge because you use that to saw. It's a survivalist kind of knife. So there are a lot of leads here. This is one of a bunch of different types of leads they can follow up on. And I'm sure they've got a team working on this type of lead, especially the murder weapon. I find I'd be incredulous if they weren't checking these websites out where you can get these types of knives, or the gun shows or the gun shops or the specialty shops where you can actually put your hands on these knives. That K-bar knife is a killing knife. The Rambo knife, or what's being described as a Rambo knife, has a serrated edge on it. Again, that's for sawing things. And I would think that the fine part of the blade is in contrast to the serrated part of the blade, and you could identify that type of wound from a forensic standpoint.
Have to tell the public more, and I don't think they're going to tell the public more at this point. They are knee-deep in investigating this case. Imagine the public wants the puzzle put together before they have the pieces. They need to get all the information back from subpoenas, from court orders, from review of this forensic evidence, from their interviews, and they just don't have it all put together yet. So I think they've moved on from where the snow is affecting anything, unless, of course, they're led to another area that it could compromise if it was unknown before. I don't know that investigators are really paying close attention to what people are saying online. What they are looking at, though, is the social media that has evolved around what those students and what the victims and the roommates did leading up to this event. That's what they're closely scrutinizing. I could see a killer that committed this heinous crime wanting to be abreast of what rumors might be out there, what police might be doing.
That's the end of the edited splice I put together for you guys. I hope you liked it. Some of the notes that I took, obviously we want to know more about the 3 a.m. 911 call that was placed near the frat party that we seen in the clip in the beginning of the stream, that Brian Enton showed Ashley Banfield was very close to the house. Again, we don't know if it's related. We don't know if it's connected. We don't know much about that 911 call, and the fact that we don't know very much about it and no one's really speaking on it, to me, is even more interesting. So, want to know more about the frat party, obviously, and the time gap with Ethan and Xana. You know, we've heard they were there from 8 to 9. We've also heard reports of somebody texting Ethan around 2 a.m. and they're claiming he was still at the party. Again, that is more hearsay. We don't have an updated timeline from Ethan and Xana from law enforcement besides them being home at 1:45. So I've seen reports say that Ethan and Xana were still at the party at 1:45. And then I've seen other reports, including one from law enforcement, claim that no, they were at home at 1:45. We covered in our last live stream that they updated the girls' time of arrival at home to 1:56 or 1:53 a.m. I can't remember which one. So that was updated because at first they had it, Xana, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie all got home at 1:45. And then all of a sudden last week, I believe, or a few days ago, they updated the girls arriving home at 1:53 because they had the timestamp and the information from the private party that dropped them off or whatever. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Hi, Princess Megan. It's good to see you. Sweetie, Sweet Pea, baby. Good to see you again. And thank you so much for becoming a member. Hope you're doing well. Lucia, thanks for being here. Jesse, everyone else who has joined, thanks so much for being here. Tom N., thank you so much for the super chat. This case definitely screams premeditated. I agree. I 100% agree. The whole thing about the prosecutor flip-flopping on this was targeted, they don't know who the target is, they do know who the target is, that all was unraveling after Brian's interview with him. Up until last night, I was trying to get like an updated something from that. And didn't they say that the prosecutor is still standing by what he said or something, or there's no new information? I don't know. That was very confusing because, so I don't know, it says This is from KTVB. I just interviewed prosecuting attorney Bill Thompson. He confirmed that one of the victims in the home was in fact the target. He also said he's confident that they are going to find out who did this and hold them accountable. So that took place after Brian's interview with the prosecutor. And then all of a sudden, Brian Enton followed up after that with a tweet, and he says, "Today, Moscow police say the prosecutor's statements to me should not imply there is any new information on the case." So it says, regarding the interview with Latah County Prosecutor Bill Thompson, we feel his responses were messaged to support the implication that new information had been released, specifically generalized statements regarding the potential of targeted victims and the involvement of drugs were redefined into an affirmative answer. At this time, there is no charge or new information in the case. The references otherwise would be inaccurate. We asked the public to refer to Moscow Police Department website. So once again, somebody said something, and was that the version he read, Ashley? Because that's the statement he was putting out on Twitter. So I'm assuming that's his updated statement. So I don't know, just more miscommunication, and then Moscow police kind of trying to come out and say like, nothing, no new information. And I don't know, that was just so weird. And I was like asking my group chat, I'm like, what is going on here? So, all right. So no new information as far as who's involved and who's targeted and all that. But let's switch over to Court TV and we'll start watching that. Let me see if there's anything else. So the vehicle's being removed. I wanted to ask you guys your opinion on that. And for those on replay, let me know your opinion as well. What do you think that they should have removed them sooner? Press 1 if you think that they should have removed the vehicles sooner. Press 2 if you just think they know what they're doing. It was inside the tape, the crime scene tape, so everything was contained and safe and all that. You know, so I don't know. For me, you would think, and the same with Joseph Scott Morgan. He said, you know, he doesn't mean to be Monday morning quarterback, but why did it take so long for them to get the vehicles to a forensic garage? I don't know. You guys let me know your thoughts. So, you know, was this a Greek life type target is what I'm thinking. You know, we've talked about the incel theory. We read through a statement from, you know, experts on that theory in the beginning of the stream. If you guys need to hear that, it was a newer article yesterday from Fox. But I'm also just wondering, you know, if this was targeted specifically to sorority girls or, you know, the frat. Did they not like that type of, you know, like they said, Stacy Chad type of thing? But specifically, like, also, oh, you're in a sorority or frat, like, I have an extreme hatred for you as well. And then when they say that the other murders, remember that other murders that took place in a state over, they came out saying like, no, that's not related. And everyone was wondering like, how can they already clear that already? I'm wondering if it's because they're saying it's not related because the couple that was killed in their bed, you know, not only was it a man and a woman, but it was, they weren't in Greek life. Again, I'm just speculating. I don't know. But they definitely said that the murders in the other state was not related to these murders, even though they both took place with a knife and they both were sleeping at the time. Good morning, Brittany. It's good to see you. Perhaps they figured out it was someone possibly in their close circle that had rode with them before. Got you. Yeah, like printing the vehicle or whatever to align with some story that somebody had told cops or something, or the avenue you're saying, like rode with them before. Good morning, Lisa. It's good to see you. Yeah, Idaho police think they have the investigation under control. Hope so. I hope so too, because after the prosecutor was putting out mixed signals in his interview with Brian, and then all that follow-up stuff was going on. Idaho State Police still put out a statement last night at like 9:40. It was the article that I read in the beginning where they said they still believe it's targeted and they don't have any updates on person of interest. So I don't know. It was all over the place yesterday. This is just absolutely wild, all this conflicting statements. Okay, so let's switch it up. And thank you again for being here, guys. Got my coffee. Hit that like button if you haven't done so already. It's greatly appreciated. So I haven't watched this yet. I'm excited to watch it with you guys. You know, we love Vinny and Court TV here. And for fair use purposes, obviously, I will be pausing. And just to pull up your guys' comments in chat too, because you guys actually have great points and they actually get my brain working this early. So thank you so much for being here. Please hit the like and let's watch this.
At the University of Idaho is the vigil for the 4 students who were murdered. Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter is at the vigil tonight. Chanley, I know you can't speak loudly because it's taking place behind you, but can you describe the scene for us a little bit?
So before we start getting into this, I did want to say 420 dog lover. What about someone from the bar? That is an interesting question and comment and very, very valid. And we've kind of been talking about it too, that they specified in one of the most recent police statements that they want anything that you guys have to say, like if you saw suspicious or unusual activity centered around downtown, like so the bar area and other places, but the bar was definitely on the list as like, hey, if you were here, if you have picture or video, or you remember something when you were in this area that was strange, call us, let us know. So I think that the bar is definitely glanced over by a lot of people, and something for sure could have happened there, or somebody could have been there, for them to ask for, let us know if you noticed anything unusual. Again, they're not talking about after the murders. They're not saying like somebody covered in blood or somebody running frantically with a knife, or they're not talking about just then. Like obviously they want to know if you saw something after the hours of the murders, but they've specifically said throughout the night, if you were in these areas, and the bar areas is listed as one of them, and then you notice something unusual, let us know, or come forward with information. So there's definitely interest in what took place at the bar, in my opinion, from law enforcement without them coming out saying X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, Vinny, there's nearly 1,000 people here in the Kibbe Dome on the University of Idaho campus. Family, friends, sorority sisters, fraternity brothers, fellow students, professors, and just community members gathering here to honor the lives of Xana, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie. We've heard from the Dean of Students. We've heard from the president of the university so far. We've also heard from the mother of Ethan Chapin, who talked about how precious time is and to not miss a moment with those that you love and hug them tighter. We also just heard from Stephen Gonsalves, the father of Kaylee Gonsalves, one of the victims, and he had this crowd laughing and also crying, talking about her personality, her memory, his struggle as a father when she was first born, and just ended by saying they will get justice in this case. And now behind me speaking is the father of Madison Mogen, one of the other victims in this case, Ben Mogen, talking about his precious daughter. Let's watch a little bit.
College, and she works hard, and she has all these great friends in the sorority, and she's, I just would tell them all about Maddie. I wouldn't even, they walk away from it like, I don't know anything about him. We know all about his little girl though, and yeah, we love going to go see live music. That's always been my favorite thing to do, and so I started taking her to concerts when she was younger, and we saw some really good shows together. I'd take her and her friends sometimes. She was all upset when Mac Miller was going to come and she couldn't get tickets and it was all sold out and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I entered all these radio station contests, and like the night before it happened, I won 4 tickets and got to bring her and her friends, and they were meet and greet tickets. We got to go and meet them after the show, and that was the happiest memory I could think of that we shared together was that. And but she kept on going to shows. They'd go to Watershed, her and her friends, and she traveled to Canada to go to a music festival. She loved going to music like I did, and she always worked hard. She started getting jobs when she was just like barely even a teenager. Her mom had to fire her whole housekeeping staff of the hotel that she managed. And so Maddie and her friends stepped up, and the next day they were all in there cleaning rooms, which is a hard job. I've did that for like 2 days. I was like, nope. And but those little girls were in there cleaning all summer long, cleaning all the rooms. And from then on, she always had a job. Like not all of that age of kids are all out there working all the time, but she sure was. She'd always work hard and make her own money and buy her own cars and pay for her own gas. And and I wanted to, when I was up here, I wanted to make sure and mention Jake. She got to have this, is really her only real big relationship she had in her life was with Jake, who is such a great guy, and I'm so glad that she got to just have at least a little taste of what it's like to be in love with someone. And he's just a really great guy, and they treated each other the way you're supposed to. And I was really proud to just call him my daughter's boyfriend, and maybe someday maybe they would have gotten married, you know. It seemed like it at least, but I just want to thank, like they said, thank all the people working on trying to figure this out, and it really means a lot. All the love and support that everyone out there has shown through this has just been amazing. I've heard from people I haven't thought about or heard from in 30 years, and you see how good people can be when something terrible happens. 'Cause they really make you feel loved and supported when it's important. But anyway, thanks for being here, and that's all.
Pretty amazing. It's a difficult moment, but I'm telling you, it's got to help to see the faces of those young people.
Sorry, guys. I did not know that part of that was in there. That was just, I know chat is very, sad. Send prayer hands if you want. Just well wishes to the family. I did not know that he spoke and they had that in this. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have played it. It's just very heart-wrenching. Like whoever did this to that family, to that father, is just, it makes me so mad. And I did not expect to kind of be like, wow, we need like a pick-me-up after that. It's always a heavy topic, but to hear the families like this is just too much at times. The pain is palpable. His pain, agree. There was something I wanted to say too. I forgot. But either way, I really hope that this family gets the justice that they deserve. It's just very sad, obviously. I'm at a loss of words.
Watching and supporting and being there. Chanley Painter, I wanted to, you spoke with Maddie's dad earlier today.
Yeah, Vinny, his first interview ever before he spoke here tonight was with Court TV. We met him at the Mad Greek restaurant where his daughter worked with Anna Kernodle, another victim in this case. And he shared with us what he misses most about Maddie, his daughter, and of course, his message to her killer. Let's take a listen. Tell me about what a beautiful person she was.
Oh, she was so great. She lit up every room she'd come in, and she was just so positive and fun, and we love her and miss her so much.
I miss most of her.
We liked going to live music concerts together, and that was kind of our thing. And I'll miss going and seeing shows with her, and yeah.
What kind of music did she like to go see?
She used to like a lot of hip hop and stuff, but then she started liking country once her and Jake's her boyfriend, and he's a great guy, and yeah, they started going to country music stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're here where she worked.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is where she worked the whole time she was in college, all 4 years. And she loved it here. She loved the food and the people. And yeah, she was a really good fit. They miss her a lot here. They've been really sweet.
Yeah, this is your first time to visit you?
It is. Yeah.
Where else have you been in town?
We just got into town just a couple hours ago. And yeah, we're staying at the Monarch. Yeah, they've been really great.
Good.
Yeah.
And you plan to be at the vigil tonight. That's why
Yeah.
you're in town. So tell me about that and what you plan to do and say.
Yeah, I just they wanted someone from my side of the family to say a few words. So yeah, I'm just gonna say what some memories and what she meant and what we'll miss. And yeah, just say I'm not gonna write it out. I'm just gonna say kind of what comes so it's from my heart,
Sure, absolutely. Speak from the heart. This is really the first time you're going to be speaking, right? In front of people
Yeah.
about your daughter.
Yeah.
Because words can't even put into what you've been going through.
Yeah, it's hard to find any words for any of this. It's just no one should have to go through.
An extraordinary home calls for remarkable furnishings. At Paragould.
And there was more to that interview with this father, Maddie's father, in the beginning of my live stream that they had shared on Twitter before this was put out later in the day. So in case you guys want to see that full interview, that's in the beginning of the stream, as well as Maddie's other family members that spoke to the media. And then I read their statements in the article that they said.
As far as the investigation, no one's been arrested, and they say they don't have suspects. Does that?
Yeah, they call me every day and tell us they're working on how many people are working on it, and that they have these leads and that they're sending stuff in every day. So I just have to trust that they're doing as good a job as they can. And yeah, they seem like they're working hard, and that's all I can hope for.
Do you have any idea why this could ever happen to your precious baby?
Just no, nothing at all would ever make any sense of this.
If you could speak to the person responsible,
I you never know how far something like this reaches, how many people it hurts, and how they're gonna have to live with this for the rest of their life. And it's something that'll never heal. It's something you just would never wish on your worst enemy.
What do you want the world to know about Maddie Mogen?
That she was so loved, and that she was the thing I was most proud of in my whole life. And I'm glad that the one thing about this is that a lot of people get to see how beautiful a person that she is. And yeah, all these people have just been so supportive and great through this. So
How do you plan to honor her memory? I haven't even thought that far ahead.
Yeah, we're not going to have the service for her and Kaylee until after this is figured out. And but yeah, I'm just taking it one day at a time right now.
Absolutely, and you're so gracious to say. Well, anything else you want to say to make about Maddie or about this investigation? Or
I just want to say thanks to everybody that's been so great through this, and yeah, it really means a lot.
It's so horrific when bad things happen to nice people and to great families. As we go to break, I want to take a look at what's happening inside. A moment of silence. Candles have been lit. Let's listen in.
We pray for clarity in the midst of our uncertainty. Guard our hearts and minds from speculation and rumor, that someday we may have some answers. Until then, we entrust our uncertainty to you, loving God. And even in the midst of our grief, pain, and uncertainty, we offer thanksgiving. We lift up prayers of gratitude for area law enforcement and others who have come to the community to offer assistance. We give gratitude for the ways we have supported, loved.
In 2018, a killer walked the streets of Laredo.
Or TV.
Whether I'm having
So yeah, this is the first time I'm watching this with you guys. I appreciate you all being here with me. I was going to watch this anyways. It's obviously very depressing, but I didn't know that this is what the segment was about. But I'm happy, to watch this somber and depressing stuff with you guys, at least as a whole community. So thank you for being here. Hit the like button if you haven't done so already. And like I said, we'll finish up this. We'll chat a little bit more. And then that's all I really have for the day. So once again, thank you so much for being here.
An emotional night on the University of Idaho campus as the vigil continues for the 4 students who were murdered. Not only is it a time for mourning for the students on that campus, but there's also a certain level of fear that there is a killer still on the loose. And earlier today, Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter rode along with the Idaho State Police, who are providing some of the extra security on campus.
We're all here because of the incident and what happened with those 4 students from the University of Idaho. I heard about it, and then after a couple days, I received a phone call and was called out and sent up here to Moscow to help. And in law enforcement, we're a big team. It doesn't matter if you work for the Idaho State Police, Moscow Police Department, Latah County Sheriff's Office, Boise Police Department. We're all here to protect and serve and make people feel safe. When I got the call to come up here, I was happy that I was called, because this is what I signed up for. And yeah, although this is different than what I'm usually doing, we feel like we've been really well received by the faculty, by the students. And so that's, that makes us feel good. And every student I've talked to, they're like, you all are everywhere, and that's what we want, being that I'm born and raised in Idaho, this has impacted me as well, so it's a difficult thing, but I would do it 100 times over. See me home if you guys need something. I'm serious.
Yeah, thank you.
Seriously,
Good to
guys.
see you. Yeah, good
Always
to see
running into you guys.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Guys, have a good workout. The main mission and goal for the officers and troopers in uniform is we're here to make these students, to make the community feel safe. That's our primary goal. The campus, the university, the community, I mean, really the whole state, they're all hurting. They're all hurting for many reasons, and obviously because of what happened. I spent yesterday afternoon, I went by one of the fraternities on campus, and I sat with some of the students, and I just answered questions. You know, a lot of people have a lot of questions, and they're uneasy and uncomfortable being here. And so I just tried to ease their mind. We are excited to give these families what they deserve.
And sadly, I hate to say it, but I feel like communities just, it takes a lot for them to get over something like this, in my opinion. And some of them just never do. Like, I feel like that house needs to be bulldozered down. I don't know how you guys are feeling about that. But thank you so much, Pam, for the super chat. I really appreciate your support for the channel and your compliment. It means a lot to me. So thank you so much. And thank you, Rebecca. Great community, great work as always. And thank you for being a moderator. I just gave you a wrench, and I think this is one of the first live streams that you're my mod. So thank you for all your support. You've been around since the Watts days. So CDT and I definitely appreciate your support and you being on our channels. And thank you everybody for being here for sure. We appreciate and love you all for real. So let me play the rest of this and then we'll go through some notes. I know that just some things I want to wrap up, and then that'll be it.
What a combination of emotions on that campus when you talk about the fear and the uncertainty, along with what happened tonight, the vigil, which is the heartbreak, the despair. Let's bring back in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, who was there at the vigil, which looks like it's just wrapping up.
It is, Vinny. The students, the community members are filing out silently, somberly, emotionally tonight, honoring the 4 victims, their fellow students. Just steps from where we are in the Kibbe Dome on the University of Idaho campus. We heard from the Dean of Students, the President of the university. We heard from a representative from each of the victims' families, including Ethan Chapin's mother, Kaylee Gonsalvez's father, the father of Maddie Mogen, and a representative of the family of Xana Coronado. Maddie's father, Ben, told me that her mother is too bereaved to even come into town. As you can imagine, they are not going to have a memorial for their daughters until this is to fruition. This investigation is still ongoing. There was messages of justice, messages of hope, and memory of those 4 students. There was a moment of silence that was quite powerful. They dimmed the lights. They had everyone turn on an app on their phones where they could have a candlelight. They had the nearly 1,000 people in this dome turn their lights towards the right, where the other family members of the 4 victims were up in the stands to my left here inside this dome. And they named each victim one at a time, and then lit a candle or a light for each one, and a moment of silence for each one. It sends chills up your spine. You could hear just kind of maybe some silent sobs, but then they had a prayer and an emotional music. As the students walk in, they are giving out pins for them to wear that say Vandal Strong, the slogan for the community, for this campus since this happened. They're also given flyers and other materials about services the university is offering here for students, counseling and things of that nature, Vinny. So again, they're filing out here for this vigil, and not only was it taking place here, but it was taking place in multiple locations across the state.
It's a lot for these students. It's a lot for the campus.
So before we conclude, just want to thank you all for being here and go through some stuff that is important and noteworthy. So we had heard last night during their memorial service that Maddie and Kaylee were in the same room, in the same bed when they passed. The red Mustang that had forensics unit on it is not related, according to law enforcement. The out-of-state murders that took place of 2 people in their bed sleeping with a knife is not related, according to law enforcement. Roommates are not related to the crime at this time. Ex-boyfriends are not related to the crime at this time. The ride home, the private ride home, is not related to this crime. The guy in the white hoodie and the brown jacket at the grub truck, not related. Anyone who was on the 911 call is not believed to be related. The knife guy on campus, now that I heard that they found out who it was, but I haven't heard them like 100% come out say that it's not related. I know that Chris McDonough had some post on his community thing talking about it, but I can't remember what it said. Does anyone know, just to refresh my memory? But as far as I know, I just don't know. And the coyotes that were skinned isn't related. The dog that was skinned isn't related. And all they keep saying, as far as even up until last night when I read that article in the beginning of the stream, that article was posted at 9:40 p.m. So that's how late and how up to date the information in the stream is. That was where they had stated that. What was my train of thought? Oh, sorry. Idaho State Police said they still believe it's targeted. So won't tell us why, but that is all I can really remember, guys, as far as things that we need to be sure that we emphasize. Now, the other thing is, we don't know. Yes, Julie, we don't know anything about the 911 call that was made around 3 a.m. in relation to some field near the house and somebody being drunk. We don't know very much about that. We covered that in the beginning of the stream too. And the media is digging into that, including Brian Enton, but they didn't have much to bring us. So that is still sort of a mystery. Let me think. Oh, the 911 call. Now, I know we've discussed this in the beginning of the stream. We discussed this on CDT's live. And by the way, CDT, are you going live today? Please let us know in chat. But they, that post about somebody passed out, they were outside, blah, 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 blah. Again, I've gotten it over and over in my comment section. We had seen that on Reddit. We've seen it in the Facebook groups. We've been aware of it. We don't know if it's accurate. Law enforcement has been asked questions about the 911 call. They're very tight-lipped about it. They have said anyone on the phone that made that call is not related to the crime. They've also stated the call was made from inside the house with a roommate's phone. And then Kaylee's father, we showed in the beginning of the stream, stated in one of his interviews that the roommates noticed that something was wrong when they were texting and calling and weren't getting a response back from Kaylee and them. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you guys. We will talk again very, very soon, probably on Monday, unless there's a window of time where I can go live on the weekend, but probably not. So either way, hit the like on your way out, and we will be speaking very soon. And everyone who sent a super chat and super sticker and hit the like, I appreciate you guys so much. So goodbye, guys.